Welcome to the Agency Uplift Podcast, all about the unique experience of growing a digital agency, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the learnings, the opportunities. I'm your host, Sean Lang, agency owner of over 7 years and co-founder of Social Commerce Club. And today I'm joined by Grant Hushick, founder of Grantbot. Grantbot is a workflow optimization agency. They automate everything from content marketing to delegation, sales to invoicing. And currently they're talking about creating 10x employees with automation and AI. I'm thinking that's going to be something that's very interesting to all of our guests. Grant, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, you can tell how excited I was when I mixed the word join with Grant, and I think I said we're grand, which makes absolutely no sense, but maybe it does because this is going to be a grand episode. There we go. I tied it all back together, bringing it back home. So, Grant, with that out of the way, how did you get into the workflow optimization agency space? Because that is a little bit more niche than probably most people are used to.
Yeah, it's not the typical Facebook ad agency. So I got started by working for a company called Hampton, which is a founder community. I was the first employee there, just focusing on automation work, Zapier, HubSpot, Airtable, Stripe, Slack, all those kind of standard run-of-the-mill tech platforms these days. Well, they can all talk to each other. And so I got really good at making those tools talk to each other so that our team of, for most of the time I was there, less than 10 people, acted like they were a team of 30 because so much of the manual work was gone. So as I was helpful to the team and to the community, always kind of throwing in little insights about automation, people started to recognize my good work. I got a decent reputation, and that's how I got my first few clients while I was still doing my full-time job. And then I left to launch the agency in April of 2024. So we're coming up on 1 year formally in existence.
Coming up on 1 year, congratulations. That's a pretty serious milestone. Actually, I didn't realize how potentially perfect the timing of this episode is going to be. So depending on when this episode airs, it might have just happened or it's just about to happen. So everyone, make sure you congratulate Grant. That's really cool. So what made you want to decide to go off on your own? Because, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. Clearly you're an entrepreneur, but there's a lot of people when they discover a new, cheat code or hidden talent like that, their first inkling isn't to go and start their own business. So why did you do that?
Yeah, it's a fun journey because I think a lot or like a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll try something extremely difficult that they have completely out of their depths, and then they're like, that didn't really work. I was super naive, and they work their way towards something that's more manageable or accomplishable. And that was my story to a T. So I started with a hedge fund for sports betting. That was my first attempt at entrepreneurship with some buddies from college. Didn't work. I don't have a hedge fund. So that was strike one. Strike two, I tried a SaaS tool, AI writing tool for real estate agents. Tough market. I know you and I have talked about that at length. And then because I couldn't actually impact the product, I realized I'm technical in the sense that I understand automation. I have an engineering background, but I don't code. So not being able to impact the product and say, oh, I really wish I could make this button do this thing. It just wasn't in my skill set, and I didn't have the time and resources or I should say, I didn't make the time and find the resources to do that. And so when I discovered that agencies were a thing, I think that's the big aha moment was, agencies exist. There's more than just being a freelancer. I always thought that you kind of set some magical number and then business kept coming to you. There's levels to the game. So when I found that out at Hampton, I really wanted to become an agency owner because I knew I could optimize the product, which was our customer service. And I really love customer service. So combining automation, AI, workflows with a really nice attention to customer service and treating people really well and treating people the way that I would want to be treated, it made a agency kind of a logical best fit for me.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and customer service, or what I like to refer to in the agency game as client experience, is something that I think that some people come by naturally. It sounds like it's already naturally a focus of yours already, but something that I've noticed with a lot of different agency owners that I've spoken with and also just interacted with is sometimes people they're too good at what they do for their own good. And by that, I mean that they completely disregard all of the other things that they're maybe not so good at, including client experience. They get in their head that if I just do this one thing really, 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 really good, nothing else really matters. And we all know that that's not really how it shakes out. At the end of the day, Grant, you could be giving me 150% of the results that I need, but if there's no relationship between you and I, it might not matter. It could, but it might not. And client experience is kind of that thing that maximizes the potential of the relationship and the impact and its ability to kind of go long term. So that's huge, and that's probably why things are working out for you so well already. So you're just about to the end of your first year. What have been some of the, I don't know, surprises, things that have sort of caught you off guard, or things that you did not expect to encounter within the first year of doing the agency thing?
Well, when you meet these entrepreneurs from all over in Hampton, and they're all extremely talented. And a lot of the times you talk to people and you're like, well, it's not that these people are, I don't know, 10 standard deviations, whatever the math is that says that this person is extremely smarter than me. It's not like that in a lot of cases. They're just people with a really good skill that were really consistent and very persistent, and that turned into $1 million plus revenue company. And so I thought, coming out of that experience, I was like, okay, well, I'm persistent, I'm hardworking, I've got a good skill, I can get to $1 million this year, right? And the F around and find out period was like 9 months, and of me just being like, what do we do? What package? How do we present it? What are the results? What do we show people? How do we treat people? What's the client experience? Like all of those things. There's no handbook on that out of the gate. And so when you have to figure out how to present this service that has never existed to a lot of people that you don't know that well, there's a lot of, let's try this and see how it goes. And you have to be committed to learning something from each and every one of those interactions, each and every little Notion page that you make until you switch to ClickUp and grow up and really take it to the next level. No, I'm just kidding.
Subtle plug there.
Subtle dig. Sorry, Notion, you just caught astray. But I do think that the to answer your question in short, the length of time to figure out what it was that we did, I thought it was going to be really obvious, 5 automations a month. But as you present that to more and more people, you realize that no one knows what an automation is. No one knows how to quantify whether that was successful. No one knows what that's worth. So you have to think in different ways. You have to continue to punch the idea until it looks the way that someone else wants it to look. And that was the thing that I really did not judge correctly when I set out, was like, how long is it going to take me to have the service that's going to actually be successful?
That's familiar. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, one thing that I learned in my many harrowing years, early years as an agency owner, is you don't know what you don't know, and the fact that you don't know that makes it that much harder, right? You don't actually understand how many of your decisions and how many of your plans are based on assumption. You're not actually realizing how many gaps you're filling with maybe this, well, maybe that. So it's a reason why I wish more people in general, but I'll say business owners, and then I'll zero in on agency owners, because I think this is a really, really complex business model. It's very, very complex. The actual delivery of the service and like the P&L is quite simple, but in terms of all the different dynamics between clients and employees and the economy and the industry and policy stuff, it's quite complex. This is why I think that it's really, really important, and I wish I had the foresight much earlier on to work with someone that was years or light years ahead of me in the game and could already say, hey, you know what? These are the assumptions that you're making. This is actually what you need to validate. All these things here, this is actually going to be a 3-month or a 5-month or 6-month goose chase for you. There's, what you think is at the end of that tunnel that looks really interesting, there's actually nothing there, but you're going to spend a lot of time chasing that. I really wish early on I'd found somebody like a coach or a mentor or an advisor, or even just a peer or a friend who had been in the agency space for even a couple of years longer than me, who could say, oh yeah, the first year you're going to want to do this. Don't do it. You think that you're a genius? Everyone thinks they're a genius when they do these things. There's a reason why these things don't work. Don't do them. So just a little just a little nugget there of hard learned wisdom on my side is find someone who's done it. They will be able to cut down that, like, if at the very beginning, if you say, hey, I think that within a year I can get to $1 million, you probably can. You just need to not make the multiple years of mistakes that everyone will make within that first fictional year to get there, right?
Yeah. And that's why I love talking to you so much, because you've got all the wisdom in your back pocket. It's easy.
I've got some, but I'm looking to connect with people who have more wisdom than me. So if you're listening, reach out to me. We're always in the market for a mentor and a coach. I think that at every level you always need that. But cool. So I think that this is probably a great time to sort of get into something you alluded to. You said, 5 automations, which is part of the service that you offer. So why don't you dig into a little bit about what Grantbot does? Because I think this is actually going to be pretty interesting to the agencies listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few ways to kind of chop up workflow automation. There's the things that we know work 100% of the time, like taking your call transcripts and turning them into LinkedIn post ideas, which you can then approve and turn into full LinkedIn posts. Like, doesn't matter what business you are, doesn't matter what you sell, what service you offer, that's going to be valuable. Being on LinkedIn, creating organic content, 2 thumbs up, that's going to help. And so that's a standard one that we offer. But on the more custom side, which is what the 90% of our revenue comes from, is going into companies and saying, what are the processes that you have right now? And we're working primarily with marketing agencies. And so it's, what are the processes that you have right now around the CRM to win projects, client onboarding to launch those projects, project management to fulfill those projects, and billing or invoicing to collect project revenue. So understanding each of those processes and the tools that you use allows us to make connections between the people that you have and the process you have, the problems that they have, the technology you're currently paying for, and a technical, simple solution, because we want these things to scale. So we go in, we interview people on your team, we understand all those details, those really granular, like, well, what if this happens? Or what if the color of the button is purple? Like, all those little things. We want to understand everything so that when we propose solutions, we know they're going to last 6 years and not 6 months. And so getting really like practical and just plain English, we interview people on your team, we understand their processes, we connect those to tools like Zapier and Make and HubSpot and ClickUp, and then we make everyone's life much easier by automating away manual crap. That's it in a nutshell.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are some common issues you see, some commonalities between agencies when you start the interview process of talking to the employees?
A lot of the work that we've been doing recently is around project management, and I think that that's one of the biggest pieces of an agency because, again, it's a service. So you need to make sure all your timelines are on pace. You need to make sure all your people are at capacity or slightly below it so they're not, burning out. And so resource planning really stems from resource planning, which is, on its way to profitability, is a measure of how am I organizing the work that's getting done. And so we're ClickUp certified partners. And so we go in to people's ClickUp instances, or we go into their Asana and Notion setups, and we understand how they're using the tool now and what they would gain from switching over to a tool like ClickUp. So we'll do like a 4 to 6 week workflow assessment. And then from there, we go and propose all the solutions. And one of the things that people really don't get enough value from in ClickUp is things like task types. So understanding that you could make something a campaign instead of a task, and that allows you to roll things up to all of the campaigns across all of your clients super easily. That visibility is something that every manager needs, every founder needs to be able to see a specific type of work across all of the clients. And when you pair that with the progress bar field in ClickUp, then you can see how close are these things to being completed against their due date. That is critical information to making sure that you are staying on time with your deliveries. And so what we're trying to do is always make sure that we can make technology help you deliver on time, in full, and at your quality standards. So it's a lot of like small tweaks in ClickUp, but sometimes it's massive things. Like I've seen people use 20 different statuses for their tasks. Who is that helping? There's ways to simplify a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was just thinking, based on my experience of building automations in my own agency, is it can be very easy to come up with the most novel and complex solution to a much simpler problem. And that might work for you because you're the one that created it. But if you want to now have somebody else interact with that, they're going to be like, what is this? If the solution isn't usable to everyone, I think it's kind of useless in general. Like, you don't want to be the sole key holder to that one automation. I mean, that kind of eliminates the whole point of an automation, which is it scales with you. It can do the work when it can do the tasks of multiple people. But if it's actually just doing the task of you, then all you're doing is just duplicating yourself and really, really limiting the efficacy of what you're trying to build.
Exactly. And one of the other things that a lot of people are coming to us now, which is really exciting, is they're trying to answer the I don't know what I don't know, as you mentioned earlier, about automation and AI. So a lot of people think, yeah, ClickUp's fine, HubSpot's fine, it's doing its job, but I want to know what automation and AI means in today's age. Like, who can be my whisperer of what's going on and what's applicable to my business? Because there's a lot of people that post content, myself included, but people want the solutions for their business. So once we come in and understand how everything works, we can start making recommendations about how to use AI and automation in more novel ways unique to their business, unique to their reporting process, or unique to the perspective that they have. So training an AI on the narrative-based framework that they have for reporting. Even though they're running meta ads, there's a very specific way that they want to present that data in line to their initial research. So how do we combine all those elements? That's the type of work that we're getting into a lot more now, which is really exciting.
That's really, really cool. One thing that I think is really, really valuable, sort of in line with that, is with AI and automation kind of being these massive force multipliers and also moving very, very quickly. I think it's really important, not just the implementation of it, but I think that the educational piece is also really, really critical as well. Like, probably for you, coming in with Grantbot, it's probably much easier to work with an organization that has at least a few people with understanding of how AI and automation actually works, so that they can interface with you, be helpful, and also potentially collaborate. So I think it's really, really important that that not only do we implement these solutions, but also that everyone's collective knowledge is always raising. One thing that we did in our agency, and we're actually constantly doing it now, is we have a resource page with all of the things that we're doing with AI and automation that's currently working. So whether it's a number of custom GPTs that have been super, super helpful, one thing that I put together is just, if you don't know how to make a custom GPT, you should in general, because that's at least going to allow you to say, hey, here's something that I'm doing constantly. I made a custom GPT for it. Do you think that we could actually now automate this? It allows people to, like, it changes their frame of reference. It changes almost the language that they're using, or even like the mental frameworks that they're using in relation to the processes or what have you. So we found it really, really important and really, really the only term I can think of is force multiplying in just like raising the level of the team in general by saying, hey, it's not enough for you just to know how to do the work. You also need to know now how to automate it, how to maximize it with the tools that we all have at our disposal. Is that something that at Grantbot you guys do any focus on in terms of educating the teams that you're working with?
We definitely hold workshops and things after we do an implementation for like transition of knowledge. That's for sure. And we're now starting to explore with our teams on our retainers after we do the project, ongoing informational sessions. Like, I go on a podcast, I might say something that I'm researching recently, but going to a one-on-one session with the team saying, maybe this is how you create a GPT, or here are some of the interesting tools that we think are relevant to you in your business. I think that stuff's useful. A lot of times we just need to expose people to what's possible. And that's really that's kind of my whole thesis around organic content. It's just trying to be exposure to these new ideas. But I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, our North Star when we work with new partners is really about letting creative people be creative and letting problem solvers do problem solving. We don't want people copying and pasting anymore. We have technology to solve that problem. So how can we shape your tools in a way that allow you to continue to be creative for more hours of the day? Because that's ultimately why your team is there. They love the work that they're doing. They don't want to get bogged down with all the other stuff. So we're trying to get rid of the other stuff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for the agency owners listening now who are wanting to get into a little bit more AI and automation for, again, just maximizing their efficiency, what are some areas of low-hanging fruit that you think that they should go look at right now where they could probably set up some simple automations themselves?
If you have good guidelines around internal team communication, I think that's a good, like, you and I both know that any automation needs to be built on a good process foundation, right? So if your company is mature and you know that you have good processes that aren't going to change for, let's call it 6 months, I think a couple of good ones are around project management and the CRM. So for instance, well, those two tools are the lowest hanging fruit, hands down. They're the largest sources of truth in your tech stack. So what deals are we closing and what deals are we fulfilling? There's so much data in there. So easy ones for me would be like, if you have a deal stage in your CRM where you're going to do any work for someone before they close, and that could be a proposal, it could be a little demo, it could be like, I'm thinking specifically of agencies, like making a Facebook ad as an example to show what kind of work we do. If you move something into the demo stage, alert all the people in Slack that, hey, there's something in demo, like who can pick it up really quick, right? And tag the channel. That's a little thing that's going to help you close a deal faster, and that might make the difference. So those are the types of things where if we can move knowledge or move a data piece from a system to the team for quicker action, that's definitely a net benefit. And on the project management side, another example of this would be if you are using your priorities or your urgency levels. I don't know what it is in your project management system at home, but in ClickUp, it's priority. So if you put a priority set to urgent, you should notify everyone that it's urgent. Like, urgent things need to be solved immediately. So in that situation, it is something that demands human attention immediately. Set it to urgent, notify the whole team or notify all the relevant people, depending on where that task is. Those are things that can help repair a client experience, save a relationship, close a deal faster. And ultimately, the whole kind of topic that we've been going around is client experience and retention, super high, and closing deals and getting more cash flow in the door, very high importance. So little things like that, they seem so boring, but they can be so impactful for those big meta agency things that we all really care about.
Absolutely. It's funny. In business in general, you're going to find that the less sexy the solution, probably the more effective it actually is. Like, you're not going to create
100%.
a giant, LinkedIn post with a lead magnet that gets 5,000 comments by talking about automating some simple communication. But at the end of the day, automating the simple communication is what's actually going to propel you forward much quicker and improve the quality and the value of the work that you're delivering. It's 100%, man. How has the agency changed since you started it? I mean, that's a very vast question because realistically, it's probably on a daily level. But in ways that stand out to you as the owner.
Oh man, what direction to go with that? I mean, from a team perspective, obviously huge change. When I left, I had already hired one person, so we were 2. Now we are 8. So in 1 year, that's a fairly good clip. So from a team perspective, managing all those people, definitely different. I would say my biggest focus right now, besides just keeping the train running, is really around like team culture. And because we're a remote company, we started that way. It's intentional. I want to have automation engineers in every time zone, always available to support, always around. That to me is a great client experience. And so now I've really been thinking about, like, we lost someone that I wanted to hire because he said he wanted an in-person experience. He wanted to have a really tight team. And I realized that we're not doing anything to harbor that tight team culture despite having never met each other. And it's a really hard thing to do. So I'm really focusing right now a lot of my brain power on how can I bring this team together in small ways that make a big impact. And so we were talking briefly around like having like fitness goals that the whole team is on board with and that you're sharing and talking about regularly, or having paid lunch twice a week. When you're paying for lunch in Argentina, it's not the same as paying for lunch in New York, so some of those things are a little bit more doable on a regular cadence. So I'm really focusing on making the team environment really strong so that we have people that are really happy to work for Grantbot and continually push themselves to deliver a great client experience. So I'm starting with a team, having that impact the clients, and then having that impact profitability. That's my thesis. We'll see if it, or my hypothesis rather, we'll see if that plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I think it will. I think at the end of the day, every culture is going to be different, and so you might try different things and get different outcomes, maybe things that you weren't exactly expecting. But that leads me to one other question: is how have you currently defined the culture at Grantbot? Have you put any, because it's still within the first year, kind of coming to a close of the first year, and at this point, most agencies haven't necessarily done a lot of the defining work yet in terms of, I mean, you've probably gotten to ICP and basics like that, ICP and positioning, but most agencies that I talk to haven't necessarily solidified core values yet, and so often that can really help with culture building. Where are you at with core values right now?
Oh, we did like the first major chapter of EOS, where you do core values, mission, vision, all that stuff. I think that it was good to think about, but when we did it, we had 4 people on the team.
Yeah.
So is anyone asking us, are any clients asking us for this? Are any of the team members asking for this? Now people, when we interview them, are thinking more about, mission, vision, values, but before that, no one really was. And I'm not going to say it was a waste of time, but it never did anything for us. It's sitting in a doc somewhere that no one looks at.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the way that we set the culture now is I'm just trying to get everyone to collaborate more as the number one priority. And that starts with trusting these people as people before you're like throwing work at them across time zones and so on. So that's really my focus. I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, Grant, collaboration sounds like a potential strong core value for you. So I completely hear you on that. And in past iterations of the agency, we've gone through EOS and done core values, mission, vision, etc. And one thing that I felt, and this isn't to harp on EOS because it brings a lot of value in terms of the general structure, but I find that it kind of treats core values the same way that I'll say corporate America in general treats core values, which is like, it's the thing that you should have, but nobody really knows how it relates to anything after that. Like we talk about core values in the strategy document, and then we probably never talk about them or even look at them or thinking about them until we look at the strategy document annually for like the annual review of the strategy or whatever. And that's it. Just a subtle little, not a subtle, a very explicit, plug for a LinkedIn post I made with a video that I think that everyone should watch. But basically, I talk about this a lot with agency owners. Core values are super important, but only if you actually know how they relate to what you do in general, right? So I created a simple framework. It's actually just a Google sheet, and essentially it's walking through, okay, what is the core value? What is the description of the core value? Like, what does it mean? Why is it important internally? Why is it important externally? How am I going to model this as a founder? Because at the end of the day, if I have core values, but I'm not modeling them as a founder, they don't mean anything, right? How do these core values? And it's value by value. How does this core value affect hiring? How does it affect client experience? And you kind of go through all these major elements of the agency, because you're basically saying, if I'm gonna make these core values, I actually want them to be embedded in a tangible way where we can actually see. So how core values, for example, affect my hiring process is we actually have them listed in the job descriptions in most cases. But then the main thing is that we tailor a lot of screening questions and then also a lot of actual interview questions, not explicitly, but around specific core values. So if like one of our really big core values at Social Commerce Club is bias for action. Like, I don't want to hire somebody who is going to wait to be told what to do. I want them to be like, I'm here to get stuff done. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to ask for forgiveness later rather than permission to get work done. Because I think that's the worst thing in an agency is when people are just waiting to be told. That doesn't work. So just to give you a basic example, in the interview questions, we're looking for examples of bias for action, bias towards action. And if we see that and other core values, then we're thinking, okay, this person's a values fit. Not only are they a expertise and a skill fit, they're a values fit. So they have a much better chance of bringing the kind of value that we're looking for and fitting in long term. But then in the actual new hire onboarding after that, then we're actually talking specifically about core values. And we're saying, hey, here are all of our core values. Here are scenarios, fictional or real, where this happens. And based on this core value, here's what your reaction technically should be, right? And kind of making it real, painting pictures and kind of showing you like where the rubber meets the road in terms of core values. Not only that, in our weekly meetings, we'll often bring up a specific core value and we'll talk about it as a team for 10 or even 15 minutes. Like, what does this mean? Why is this important? Why is this important to our overall vision? We're constantly saying these aren't just words. Like, this is literally like the DNA of the agency and what we do. And I think that there are multiple approaches, and I'm sure that there are better approaches than mine to core values. I'm not going to say that this is the best, but where 95% of businesses, agencies, but businesses in general, I think fall flat is they think that core values are just an annual exercise. And you just like write it on a piece of paper and then you slap it on the wall and then you point to it every now and then and say, honesty, integrity, authenticity. And people are like, cool, that means nothing. Moving on. So I'll post a link to that LinkedIn post in the show notes, because and it's honestly, it's me kind of browbeating everyone, being like, now you don't have an excuse. Here's how you do it. Go.
We need that sometimes.
I need it regularly, which is why I was saying I need coaches and mentors. So, get at me. I need somebody to call me on my BS. I was trying to figure out how not to swear there. Not that this is a family show, but let's just keep it clean anyways. Grant, this has been a fantastic and illuminating conversation as always. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on today. Where can people find out more about Grantbot?
Yeah, so easy website, Grantbot, all one word, BOT at the end, .co. And then LinkedIn, probably the best place to find me, Grant Hushick on LinkedIn. I'm the only one there, so easy to find.
That's awesome. And then just before we call it, was there any final words from you?
I think two things. One, if you are curious, just expose yourself. Choose a problem and try to find a tool that solves your problem. I think that's the best way to learn. That's the best way to get exposed. But come with a problem, so you know when it's solved. So that's number one. And then number two, if you are anywhere in the world and you're interested in what we're doing at Grantbot, I think a much more fun call to action is to find amazing talent. If anyone wants to work with me, I'd love to talk to you, but I also love going on podcasts to meet amazing people around the world. So if you're interested in what we're doing, I'd love to chat too.
Awesome. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.